Hello, Sense of Things audience. It's Jeff and Ron here, and it's unusual for us because we're actually recording this in the afternoon. We usually record in the mornings, but we all both had some schedule conflicts. So you get what you get. We've been working all day, and now you get what you get. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the economic stuff that I talked about a couple weeks ago. We're going to go back through some of that economic data because we're leading up to the Fed decision next week. And so we'll discuss a little bit about that today. We will also focus a little bit on some fun facts about the dollar, which I thought was funny. I went down a rabbit hole today. So stand by. We'll be right back with you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Sense of Things. Ron, how you doing, my friend?
Good. It is the afternoon, and I needed some afternoon crack, so I had some sugar to make sure we will be able to get through this no problem.
And it's almost dinner time for me, so I'm sitting here getting a little hangry. So
you got to remember, I'm still on East Coast clock, even out here in Arizona. So yeah. I'm in the office 6:37. I'm up at 5:15. This time of the afternoon, it's like an afternoon nap for me.
You're wearing down now. I wanted to start off. I thought there was some real fun stuff that I found today. Some fun facts about the dollar or just U.S. currency in general. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So it's interesting when you look at our paper currency that each of them has a life expectancy. So just like we do, they have a life expectancy. It doesn't last forever. So according to the U.S. currency education program, a $10 bill has the shortest life span and a $100 bill has the longest. So on the page here, a $1 bill, 5.8 years, the $10, 4.5, and a $100 bill, 15 years. So Benjamin hangs around.
But you know what? I think the reason for it, they're producing more $10 bills than $100 bills.
Yep. But I think they're used just more often. I can't tell you how infrequent. I've never even held a $50 bill. I don't really carry around much currency ever. Nope.
Hold on. What president is on a $50 bill?
What is it, Eisenhower?
Grant. Eisenhower?
I don't know.
My God. Holy mackerel.
Once again, I don't think I've even held one ever.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
I'm all about the Benjamins, man. Come on.
Oh, who isn't?
Let me get back to where was it? Hold on. Whoa. Okay. A bank note can be folded 4,000 times. So it's pretty durable. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing says it would take 4,000 double folds forward and backwards for a dollar bill to tear. Might because it's not actually paper. It's actually, we call it paper money, but it's actually cotton and linen with tiny blue and red synthetic fibers of various lengths evenly distributed throughout the bill. So cool.
Interesting.
Now, here was something I didn't know. So there's a reason dollars are green. Dollar bills weren't always green. Colonial money, for example, was tan with black and red ink. It wasn't until the Civil War that the government started using green ink to print paper money, and that's where it got the name greenbacks. The color was selected because the ink didn't fade or easily decompose, which protected against counterfeiting.
Counterfeiting, yep. That was the number one reason, yep.
The highest bill denomination ever issued was a $100,000 bill. It was printed in 1934 and featured President Woodrow Wilson. This was a $100,000 bill, was a gold certificate currency that was never intended for public use. Instead, it was meant only for official transactions between the Federal Reserve banks. And the last time the banknote was printed was 1945, and it cannot be legally held by collectors. I don't know how a collector would get their hands on one because I'm sure they're still out there someplace, but I can't imagine that the Federal Reserve banks, even with 100, it's all electronic now. They're not handing currency around. So this was cool. Martha Washington is the only woman to appear on a U.S. bill.
I did not know that.
Our nation's first lady, Martha Washington, is to this day the only woman to have her likeness on a U.S. paper currency note. Her image appeared on a dollar certificate first issued in 1886 and was discontinued in 1957, which is, I thought I knew a lot about money. It was the country's second longest issued paper money.
How about that?
So how did Martha's dollar silver certificate last longer than 5.8 years? I don't get it. All right.
I don't know. That's interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah. So for those of you that have been following the markets the last couple of weeks, it has been a little hairy. Certainly last week was one of the uglier weeks that I've seen in a while. And we've had a few of these things rolling over on us over the last few weeks. I think a lot of it's just going into the uncertainty of the fall. We discussed this a few weeks ago. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go back through the slides that I had done a few weeks ago. Now these things have happened, and I wanted to just go through how they ended up coming out. So the first slide was Friday, August the 30th. And a lot of the real major news tends to be put out on Fridays. So you'll see a lot of these are Fridays. So Friday, August 30th, we had personal income, personal spending, and PCE, which PCE is the number that the Fed watches more than anything, which is personal consumption expenditures. But it was interesting. That was a day that also personal income came out, personal spending came out, along with the PCE prices. It was interesting that PCE basically came in line with what the forecasts were. I believe it was 0.2 and the forecast was 0.2. It came in at 0.2. So it was right on the money. Personal income was higher, which is interesting, especially with a lot of what I'm hearing from my recruiter friends.
Getting raises.
Yeah, they're getting raises, but it's interesting. My recruiter friends are saying that hiring is definitely slowing massively. And that typically when that happens, you don't see a lot of raises going up, but I think this is some holdover. Personal spending, which is the interesting thing, is still higher. It came in a lot higher. It was like 0.5 versus 0.3 estimate. So significantly higher. So people are still sitting there like Nero and watching Rome burn around them, and they're just spending like crazy. Any thoughts?
If they're spending, we all know where they're spending money. It's not money they have. It's on credit card. Yeah. The idea, and it's funny, they didn't break it out. Are they spending money on credit, or is they spending money that they have in their account? We don't know.
Yeah.
And all I know is we did this in a couple of other podcasts, be talking about how delinquencies paying credit card bills of 30, 60, and 90 days have spiked up in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
So maybe that's where you're seeing the spike in personal spending, is all these people that are spending more money on credit cards but not paying them. Yeah. It's so tough to say because we see the sausage, we don't know how the sausage.
That's correct. Yeah, and they don't really break it down well and I'm not sure they really even know, quite frankly. But yeah, it's interesting to see that. I just don't know. But you got to think they're running out of credit at some point. If they're doing all this on credit, they're running out of credit somewhere here in the near future.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Jeff, I've been giving a lot of thought. I know when it's going to hit the fan. When unemployment goes up precipitously.
Yep.
Because when it goes up precipitously, they got to stop spending. They can't put any more on the credit card.
Absolutely. On that, kind of coming to that. So September 6th, Friday, September 6th, that was the day that non-farm payrolls came out. And that was going to be a big number because we had a whole podcast. I had a whole rant on our wonderful government's ability to count jobs and whether it's either incompetence or a little nefarious. Non-farm payrolls came in 142,000. The expectation was 165, and that's a really low number because we were seeing, even with the
the
fudge,
average too.
Yeah, the fudge numbers, we were still up around 200, 250 in a lot of cases, and it's pulled back to 142. So that tells me there's a whole lot of folks that before it was, okay, I'm going to quit my job because they're making me come back to the office. And now they're just not hiring as much. So as people are being attrited away, we're starting to see the payrolls come down pretty significantly. And I think this is going to Ron's point, I think this is where the effect is going to start to happen.
But here's the interesting thing. There is job cutting and there are layoffs. They're not mass layoffs.
No, not yet.
Banks, Silicon Valley, they've been doing cuts, but not en masse.
Yep. And I think with Silicon Valley, they beefed up so much during the pandemic that now they're getting back to their normal, which is they pretty much knock off the bottom 20% of performers every year. And they've done that for years. So I don't think it
rank
really
and yank.
Yeah. You don't want to be a bottom performer. You middle or above in most of the tech companies. So I think it's interesting. We're starting to see that. But my point that I made here is what are the revisions going to be in 6 to 8 months or a year from now? Is this 142 going to be significantly lower than that? We don't know. And
hold on. But there's one thing you can't be guaranteed of. There will be revisions.
There will be revisions, without a doubt, and mostly down, I would assume. So we're coming into this week. Today, we had a release of CPI and PPI, or CPI. CPI came in actually right in line with the focus or with the forecast. The market really didn't like the number. I don't know if they were expecting it to be cooler than what it was. It was about 2.5% year over year. And the market just did not like it. Or I don't know, it was either that or the debate or whatever it was. But the market just had a major funk today. Most of the day was really bad in the morning, and then it pulled itself back up. NASDAQ around noon actually came into the positive, which was interesting.
Depending on which index, it was a 3 to 4% reversal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a major. I remember because I was busy doing other things and couldn't watch the market very much, but I just happened to catch the like noontime show on Fox Business, and all I could see was this huge red hill down, and then boom, it was a green hill on the other side of the lunchtime. So interesting.
I don't know what the catalyst was. I looked. I didn't see the catalyst.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of the last earnings reports coming in. Wasn't anything that was like a major market mover or anything like that. So I really don't know. All I know is it's been a lot more volatile here lately than it's been for a while. Last
buckle up.
Last real big number is core PPI. That comes out tomorrow. I don't think it's going to have a real dramatic effect on the markets. I think the markets tend to follow CPI more than PPI. PPI is a leading indicator. So the markets tend not to watch that. So what do we know? We know that the numbers are still a little bit mixed and weird going into next week. And it's either going to be a quarter point or it's going to be a half point. If I were a betting man, would say they're probably going to do a quarter point, but it will be interesting if they do come in at a half point and just shock the market a little bit.
No way. I can't see that happening. Quarter points realistic, although again, you and I talked about this. I'm surprised they would do it before the election, but I can't believe it would be. If it was a half a point, that means there's some really bad data.
Yeah. But the thing is that they're so far up at this point, they've not come back down from where they went up. And I think, honestly, I think they're wishing that they'd have done something in July. They just waited, I think, a couple months too long, and then having effectively August off. So now you go into July. Okay, the numbers are starting to look a little bit weaker, or at least in line with what they want to have happen. You have Chairman Powell come out and say, "Hey, we're there. We're where we want to be to start making that move down." I don't know. Honestly, I think it's probably going to be a quarter point.
The whole future thing I always thought was a joke anyway. Yeah. They're saying it's basically a certainty, and there's a 40% chance that it may be 50.
Yeah.
Listen, if they don't do a 25 basis point cut, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. But we'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but I think the market will be surprised, and it will be not fun if that doesn't happen. Like I said, it's very rare that they do something like this during the political season, but they've got to look at it non-politically and just say, okay, we've got to focus on getting things moving in that direction, at least you'd think, but you never know. Folks, that's my stuff for today. I wanted to make sure that y'all are on that. By the time you're watching this, PPI will have come out, and we're working towards the Fed meeting next week, and we'll be reporting on it after the Fed meeting and let you guys know what's going on.